Pyongyang, North Korea. Secret propaganda facility, Unit 121, 3:17 a.m. The air in the room is stale, smelling of ozone and old sweat. The lights are blinding industrial grade, floodlights rigged to the ceiling of a concrete bunker buried 200 feet beneath the mountains north of the capital. In the center of the room, on a polished concrete floor, 12 men are kneeling. They are beaten. Their flight suits are torn, stained with dried blood and mud. Their hands are zip-tied behind their backs with heavy-duty industrial restraints. Black hoods cover their heads, but you can see the rise and fall of their chests. They are breathing hard. These are not ordinary soldiers. They are United States Marines. Facing them is a row of 4 cameras, their red live tally lights glowing like unblinking eyes. Behind the cameras, a North Korean general checks his watch. He signals to the technicians. The broadcast is already live. Across the world, it is 1:17 p.m. in Washington, D.C. The feed has hijacked every major news network. CNN, Fox, BBC, Al Jazeera. The world has stopped. The chyron at the bottom of the screen reads, "Criminals of the Empire Judgment Day." Kim Jong-un isn't just planning to execute 12 American service members. He is planning to execute American prestige. He wants to show the world that the United States is weak, that its warriors bleed, and that its president is powerless to stop him in his own backyard. A North Korean officer steps forward. He is holding a Makarov pistol. He racks the slide. The sound echoes crisply through the silence of the bunker. He walks to the first Marine on the left. He presses the cold steel of the barrel against the back of the black hood. The world holds its breath. In the Oval Office, the president is watching. In the Pentagon, the Joint Chiefs are watching. Tehran is watching. Beijing is watching. Moscow is watching. They all think this is the end. They think they are witnessing the ultimate humiliation of the American superpower. They were wrong. They didn't know that 30,000 feet above the bunker, the sky was already full of ghosts. They didn't know that the technicians in the control room weren't the only ones watching the feed. And they certainly didn't know that 45 seconds ago, the heavy steel blast doors at the rear of the complex had been breached not with explosives, but with a silent hydraulic cutter that makes less noise than a refrigerator. What happened in the next 120 seconds didn't just save 12 lives. It reminded the world that while North Korea has cameras, the United States has Delta Force. This is the story of the broadcast that got cut short. This is the night the Hermit Kingdom invited the world to watch a show and realized too late that they were the ones on the menu. Let's rewind 24 hours. The DMZ sector, 4:02 a.m. AUH-1Y, Venom helicopter carrying 12 Marines from the 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion was conducting a low-level insertion drill near the border. It was routine. Standard training, stay on the south side, practice Napavidirth, flying. But weather in the Korean peninsula is unpredictable. A sudden, violent downdraft, microburst slammed the helicopter. The pilot fought the controls, but the bird was pushed north. It clipped the tree line. It didn't crash. It made a hard landing. A controlled crash, but it landed 400 meters inside North Korean territory. Before the rotors stopped spinning, the North Korean border guard battalions were moving. This wasn't a random patrol. This was the Storm Corps, North Korea's elite special purpose forces. They had been waiting for a mistake like this for decades. Within 15 minutes, the crash site was swarmed. 200 soldiers, dogs, armored vehicles. The Marines fought. They established a perimeter, but they were outnumbered 20-1. They were concussed, injured, and low on ammo. The order came from Pyongyang immediately. Do not kill them. Take them alive. Kim Jong-un didn't want Bodhies. Bodhies are just a tragedy. He wanted hostages. Hostages are a weapon. By sunrise, the Marines were in the back of a convoy heading deep into the north. By noon, they were in Unit 121, the propaganda bunker. The demands issued by Pyongyang were impossible. U.S. withdrawal from South Korea, $50 billion in reparations, a public apology from the president on live TV. If the demands weren't met by 3 a.m. North Korean time, the criminals would be executed. It was a checkmate. If the U.S. attacked, the Marines would die. If the U.S. negotiated, American power would be broken. Kim Jong-un went to sleep that night, believing he had won the greatest geopolitical victory in his country's history. He believed he was untouchable behind his surface-to-air missile networks and his nuclear threats. But Kim Jong-un made 3 catastrophic mistakes. First, he underestimated the reach of American signals, intelligence signals. Kim thought that by moving the Marines to a deep underground bunker, he was hiding them. He thought concrete and earth would block the trackers. He didn't know that one of the Marines, a sergeant named Miller, had swallowed a micropulse transponder the moment the helicopter went down. It's a pill-sized tracker. Indigestible. Designed for exactly this nightmare. It doesn't send a continuous signal that can be detected by counter-surveillance scanners. It bursts once every hour for 0.4 milliseconds. The NSA's satellite constellation, Orion, picked up that burst. They didn't just know the Marines were in North Korea. They knew which room they were in. They knew the layout. They knew the ventilation shafts. North Korea thought they were hiding captives in a dungeon. In reality, they were broadcasting their GPS coordinates to the Pentagon with 6-inch precision. Second, he misunderstood the capabilities of the Ghost Squadron. North Korean air defense is dense. S-300 systems, S-400 batteries, thousands of anti-aircraft guns. They create an anti-access area denial A2AD bubble that is supposedly impenetrable. Kim assumed that any rescue attempt would require a massive invasion, force jets, bombers, chaos, something he could see coming, something he could threaten with nukes to stop. He forgot about the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment SOAR. The Night Stalkers. Specifically, he didn't account for the MH-60M Silent Hawk stealth helicopters. These aren't the ones used in the Bin Laden raid. These are the new ones. Modified rotors that reduce acoustic signature by 90%, radar absorbent skin, exhaust diffusers that hide the heat signature from infrared sensors. These helicopters can fly 10 feet off the ground, in total darkness, silent as a whisper, while North Korean radars were scanning the skies for B-52 bombers. 4 Silent Hawks were already threading the needle through the mountain valleys, slipping underneath the radar lobes. Invisible, inevitable. Third, and this was the fatal error, Kim Jong-un believed the United States plays by the rules of proportional response. He thought, I have 12 hostages. They will send a diplomat, maybe a SEAL team if they are bold. But they won't risk a war. He was thinking like a politician. The president wasn't listening to politicians that night. He was listening to JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. The mission profile wasn't negotiate. It wasn't even rescue. The mission profile was CAG Direct Action. CAG Combat Applications Group. The world knows them as Delta Force. These aren't the guys who knock on the door. These are the guys who remove the wall. Kim thought he was holding a gun to America's head. He didn't realize that Delta Force had already put a sniper scope on his. The team that was en route wasn't a standard rescue element. It was a squadron, the most lethal, experienced hostage rescue unit on planet Earth. They weren't coming to negotiate. They were coming to sanitize the building. Las 3:15. 2 minutes before the execution. The scene inside the bunker is tense. The air is thick. The executioner, a colonel in the State Security Department, is sweating. He checks his pistol again. The cameras are rolling. The red lights are on. He looks at the camera and begins to read a prepared statement in Korean. The American imperialists have violated our sacred sovereignty. Outside, in the freezing darkness of the North Korean mountains, the wind is howling. But under the noise of the wind, there is another sound, a soft, rhythmic thwip-thwip-thwip. The Silent Hawks are hovering. On the fast-rope gantry of the lead bird, Master Sergeant Tex, the team leader of the assault element, adjusts his GPN VG-18 panoramic night vision goggles. The 4 lenses glow with a faint white phosphor light. He looks at his team. 16 operators. They are clad in multicam black. They are carrying HK-416 assault rifles, suppressed with surefire SOCOM silencers. They have flashbangs, breaching charges, and enough firepower to level a city block. Tex checks his wrist altimeter. They are hovering directly above the ventilation intake of the bunker complex. The plan is insane. They aren't going in the front door. They aren't blowing the main blast doors. That would take too long. They are doing a halo insert directly into the complex's air filtration plant. Tex keys his mic. His voice is calm, almost bored. Control. This is Voodoo 1. We are at the insertion point. The party is starting. Copy, Voodoo. You have green light. Execute. 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 Tex turns to his men. He doesn't give a speech. He just holds up 3 fingers. 2, 1. He jumps into the darkness. Pyongyang, Unit 121 Bunker, 3:17 a.m. and 4 seconds. The North Korean colonel's finger tightened on the trigger of his Makarov pistol. The muzzle was pressing into the base of Corporal Miller's skull. On the monitors, in the control room, and on 500 million television screens around the world, the image was crisp. High definition. The ultimate humiliation of the United States. The world flinched, but the signal to fire never reached the colonel's hand. At 3 hours 17 minutes and 5 seconds a.m., the ventilation grate directly above the execution stage didn't just open. It disintegrated. Master Sergeant Tex had placed a linear, flexible cutting charge along the frame. Boom. The explosion was contained. Directed inward, a cloud of concrete dust and pulverized steel blasted into the room. Before the dust settled, 4 flashbang grenades dropped through the hole. 9 bangers. These aren't Hollywood firecrackers. They produce 9 distinct, deafening detonations, and a flash of light brighter than the sun. Bang, 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 bang. The sensory overload in the room was absolute. The North Korean guards were blind, deaf, and disoriented. Their inner ears were scrambling to find the floor. Then came the ghosts. Tex and 3 other operators from Squadron fast-roped through the smoke, landing directly on the stage. They didn't scream. They didn't shout freeze. They went to work. The colonel with the gun was the primary threat. Tex raised his HK-416. The holographic sight found the colonel's head through the smoke. Asterisk 2 rounds. Subsonic .300. Blackout ammunition. Suppressed. The sound was quieter than a staple gun. The colonel dropped. The Makarov clattered to the floor. To the millions watching on live TV, the feed glitched. The screen went white from the flashbangs, then resolved into a scene of violent, surgical chaos. They didn't see an execution. They saw a blur of multicom black moving at supernatural speed. Contact front. Drop him. Left side clear. Right side clear. The remaining 6 guards on the perimeter raised their AK-47 firing blindly into the smoke. They were dead before they pulled the triggers. The Delta operators moved with the fluidity of a machine. Double tap to the chest. 1 to the head. The Mozambique drill. In 4 seconds, 8 North Korean soldiers were neutralized. Tex knelt beside Corporal Miller. He pulled a heavy-duty cutting tool from his vest. "Stay still, Marine. We're going home." Miller, groggy, beaten, looked up through his black hood, which Tex had just ripped off. He saw the 4-tubed night vision goggles. He saw the American flag patch on the shoulder. He whispered 2 words. "Thank God." 3:19 a.m. The outside battle. While the room was being secured, the war started outside. The Storm Corps battalion guarding the facility realized the breach. 200 elite North Korean soldiers began sprinting toward the bunker entrance. They had BTR-80 armored personnel carriers. They had heavy machine guns. They outnumbered the rescue team 20-1. They thought they could trap the Americans inside the mountain. They forgot to look up. Orbiting at 7,000 feet, in a lazy left-hand turn, was Slayer 01, an AC-13 Ojego Strider gunship. The pilot watched the thermal signatures of the North Korean trucks swarming the entrance. They glowed white-hot on his display. Control, Slayer 01. I have massed infantry and light armor converging on the target building. Request permission to engage. The voice from JSOC was immediate. Slayer 01, you are cleared hot. Danger close authorized. Rain Hell, the AC-130J is the deadliest close air support platform in history. Guns ready. The 30mm GAU-23. A chain gun spun up. Brurut. A stream of high-explosive incendiary rounds tore through the night. The lead BTR-80 exploded. It didn't just catch fire, it was the 30mm rounds punched through the top armor like paper, detonating the ammunition inside. Then the 105mm howitzer spoke. Asterisk thump. Boom. Asterisk, a 105mm artillery shell, fired from the sky, landed in the center of the storm core formation. The shockwave was visible on the thermal camera. Bodies were tossed like ragdolls. Trucks flipped over. The mountain pass turned into a slaughterhouse. The North Korean soldiers stopped running. They looked at the sky, terrified. They couldn't see the plane. They could only hear the buzzing of the engines and the thunder of the guns. They were fighting a dragon they couldn't see. 3:22 a.m. The extraction inside the bunker. The Marines were free. Tech spoke into his radio. Jackpot is secure. All packages acquired. Moving to exfil, they didn't go back up the vent. They blew the back door. A breaching charge took the hinges off the rear emergency exit. The team poured out into the cold night air, carrying the 2 Marines who couldn't walk. The Silent Hawks were already there. Skids touching the frozen ground, rotors spinning. The noise was deafening, now not from the helicopters, but from the AC-130 pounding the front of the complex, keeping the enemy pinned down. Go? The 12 Marines were shoved into the cabins of the 2 lead helicopters. The Delta operators jumped onto the external benches of the little birds that had joined the formation for gun support. As the last operator clipped his safety line, Tex gave the thumbs up. The birds lifted, they banked hard, diving into the valley, disappearing into the radar clutter of the mountains. Behind them, the Unit 121 bunker was burning. The propaganda cameras were still running, filming empty chairs and dead bodies. 3:50 a.m. Safe airspace. The formation crossed the 38th parallel. South Korean F-15Ks and U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptors were waiting to escort them home. The rescue was over. The shooting had lasted less than 5 minutes, but the message it sent would last forever. The scorecard, Pyongyang wanted a show. They got a funeral. North Korean losses, 137 soldiers, KIA mostly from the AC-130 strikes. For BTR-80 armored vehicles destroyed. Unit 121 propaganda facility, structurally compromised. Global humiliation, absolute. U.S. assets, 12 Marines. Rescued alive. 4 wounded from the crash. None from the rescue. 16 Delta Force operators. 0 casualties. 4 MH-60M. Silent Hawks, undamaged. 1 AC, 1 3, OJ Ghost Rider. Undamaged. Ammunition, expended, $400,000. Value of 12 U.S. Marines, priceless. The truth and the aftermath. At 4 a.m., North Korean state media went black. They cut the feed. They played patriotic music. Then an announcer appeared, claiming that the imperialist criminals had been executed in secret and that the broadcast was cut due to technical difficulties. They tried to lie to their own people. They tried to save face, but they couldn't lie to the world. Because at 4:30 a.m., the White House didn't hold a press conference. They released a video. It was the helmet cam footage from Master Sergeant Tex. The world watched the breach. They saw the 9-bangers flash. They saw the double taps. They heard the words, "We're going home." It went viral instantly. 2 billion views in 4 hours. The caption on the official Department of Defense post was just one sentence. "We do not negotiate." The fallout in Pyongyang was catastrophic. Intelligence reports later confirmed that Kim Jong-un executed the general responsible for the capture and the colonel responsible for the failed security. He went into hiding for 3 months. No missile tests, no threats, no speeches. He realized that his nuclear weapons were useless against a team of men who could drop down his chimney and kill his guards before they could blink. The world saw the difference between a regime that poses 4 cameras and a military that owns the night. The lesson learned that night was written in the snow of the North Korean mountains. Kim Jong-un learned that live TV is a double-edged sword. He learned that you cannot hide from the enemy. He learned that the AC-130 is the hammer of God. But most importantly, he learned the one rule that every dictator, terrorist, and enemy of the state needs to tattoo on their arm. You can threaten American politics. You can burn American flags. You can insult American leaders, but you never, ever, under any circumstances, put a gun to the head of a United States Marine, because if you do, the sky will fall on you. 12 Marines went in. 12 Marines came out. Mission accomplished. Target sanitized. Welcome home, gentlemen.